Welcome back, everyone, to my channel. I'm thrilled to have you joining me today for the construction of some beautiful book covers for some beautiful hand-bound tomes. Brew some tea, make some hot chocolate, or heck, just get yourself some tap water while you sit back and relax to the final steps of my bookbinding process. Today, I will be creating covers, assembling, adding embellishments, and finishing 3 books from my current library. I have already individually tea-stained the pages by hand, sewn all 3 signatures together, added bookmarks, sewn the headbands, created spines and their features, and cut the base covers. We will begin by creating the embossing patterns for each book. This first book here I detailed as follows: tea-stained pages, white and silver headbands, purple leather, silver metallic accents, and a functional locket as the centerpiece. I'm creating a more organic shape to inlay the locket, having measured the pieces beforehand on cardboard. I cut them out by hand with an X-Acto knife and am now gluing them in place with PVA glue. The second I described as such: tea-stained pages, black and silver headbands, blue suede leather, silver metallic accents, and a hand-painted forest greenery scene framed by 3 metal pieces I have on hand. For this cover, the shapes are quite geometric in nature, due mostly to the fact that I have way too many small cardboard strips from scraps and wanted them not to go to waste, so I Frankensteined them together in a manner that frames the pieces. And for the third and final book, gray sand-textured mixed media paper, white and silver headbands, black leather, moon cycle embossing, and hand-painted cosmic patterning. This cover has heavy use of clay work to create the lunar symbology, as well as some more intricate detailing around the framing shapes. My strategy is to lay the clay flat and smooth over the area in question, and then cut away the negative space with an X-Acto knife. I mark the spaces I intend to cut lightly with the tip of an awl before doing so. I then return with my fingertips to smooth down harsh edges. This does require oven baking afterwards. I have never found an issue with the warping of spine, covers, or with the glue on the canvas when I bake for 15 minutes at 250 degrees. It comes out very warm, of course, but perfectly intact. With the embossing laid, I may now move on to one of my favorite parts of the entire process: leather. I have pre-cut the leather into a sizable piece with generous excess. I begin gluing case-bound covers from the middle outwards and in sections, usually always beginning with the center of the spine to the first ridges. I give it a short time to dry before applying more glue to continue. The trick to embossing is to repeatedly return to areas and smooth them down, crisp the edges, and entirely flatten until the glue becomes tacky and can hold all together on its own. This leather was quite cooperative and rather lovely to work with, so I was able to apply glue across the entire cover before working its surface with the bone folder. I always initially press the leather down with my fingertips before coming in with the bone folder, so that when I begin to work in the crevices, it doesn't pull away from other surfaces or ridges too terribly, but instead stretches itself. For the blue suede on the second book, I kept the shapes fairly simple, geometric, and shallow, because this leather is a bit tricky to work with and I've dealt with it before. When you glue on the opposite side of suede, it's a bit more stubborn in its hold because it isn't as porous. The surface of this leather reacts somewhat like those sequin pillows, like the one with Nicolas Cage on it when you swipe in a certain direction, except this time, rather than revealing God himself, so to speak, it just makes the surface appear a bit darker since the microfibery things stand up a bit. As I mentioned, this leather is a bit more stubborn in nature, so I tackle the front and back covers in sections to assure that every nook is given deserved attention. For our final book, I was most liberal in the shapes of the embossing because this aniline tanned black leather is the smoothest and most cooperative of my stock. When doing heavily organic shapes, I tend to prefer the softest leathers, and since my details are more fine, the most cooperative leather of the bunch is the most suited. It also lends itself best as my cosmic backdrop, since if space was any color other than black, we'd have quite a different world and science to consider, probably. When creating the crease between spine and covers, I work the leather deep into the crevices since it is essentially the hinge for the covers to open and close. With enough slack between, so to speak, the book will not be too tight or creaky upon opening. I tackle this book in sections not due to the nature of the leather, but more the embossing. I want to assure that I can give proper time to each small area, and the more intricate the detail, the longer you'll be working over repeated areas with the bone folder. I tend to alternate between a section of the front, then a section of the back, so that each has been given time enough to dry until they're comfortable with me ushering them to move on. Since it's boring to watch, off-camera I cut the corners and folded the leather inward on each cover's interior. I have also begun basic attachment by gluing the text block attributes to the covers. And as if by time travel or some mystical ability, the cover pages are now attached. For this first tone, I chose this lovely blue to purple cloudy gradient. For the second, I chose a collage of foliage that matches the aesthetic of what I will soon paint. And for the third, I chose lunar pages detailing cycles of the moon similarly to my cover. The next step of the process is to add rivets. I had previously drilled holes in the board covers to mark their placement and make it easier to pierce all layers of the cover in this state. Using setting tools, I hammer each rivet individually into its proper place, where it shall remain as an anchor to the end of time, whether or not I had a preference for that. POV, you're resting your head on my table watching me work while I hammer mercilessly with no regard for you being there and how shaky the world has become for you. The thickness of the spines and the completed assembly can oftentimes make the positions you must take rather annoying or uncomfortable, as the book needs to lay flat in the area of application, There's quite a bit of finagling as well as hammering your own fingers. I'm attempting to sound like I'm a pleasant personality who doesn't hate applying rivets with every fiber of my being, by the way. Is it working? These rivets are a bit stumpy, and managing to attach them through all the thick layers can be rather hellish and, sorry, I forgot. The illusion of pure and utter enjoyment. Let's move on. I'm kidding somewhat. I keep doing rivets because I very much love how they turn out for the final vision. For this cover, I am now on to adding final embellishments. This is the time when a book really begins to come together in finality. What had once been just a rough idea in my mind space is becoming a fully assembled piece. The locket I chose was the inspiration for the entire rest of the book. It is something I'd been saving for quite some time, and a piece I'd grown fond of as I waited for an idea to arrive for its application. I set it with leather glue and a few small dots of superglue. The center of this locket is a brilliant opalite gem. Its shimmering in reaction to angles of light is difficult to catch on camera, but here and there's a ghostly color that flickers beneath its surface, and I hope you're able to appreciate the few moments it does. For our final book, I had not yet tailored the 3 bookmarks. I trim the edges into a small inverted point, and then quickly dart them between a flame to seal the synthetic fibers from fraying. From here, I move on to the final details of this tome, the cosmic painting. Using a mixture of pure purple, baby blue, light pink, and white leather paints, I slowly lay the groundwork for a spindly cosmic network that will hold a foreground of stars. The leather paint is comfortably water-soluble when it is wet, but dries completely permanently and flexibly on the leather. I mix the webs of colors amongst each other throughout the cover, attempting to keep a degree of abstraction. I plan to paint this pattern across the entirety of the front cover's negative space on its interior layer, as well as a few outcropping patterns on the backside. After laying the celestial groundwork, I return with white to add tiny dots of stars. I intersperse areas of heavy and light, big and small, across the entirety of the backdrop. it is in all its cosmic glory. I'm quite satisfied with how the pattern came out, and I think it sets a nice colorful contrast against the plain black. I wish for the focus to be entirely on this contrast, and as such, I refrain from adding any embellishments or metallic pieces to the covers. For our blue and silver backdrop to the greenery, I add the corner pieces. I sketched the layout and spacing ahead of time on fine linen canvas. Coincidentally, it's the same canvas linen I pulled from those wooden frames I used to make paper from scratch in some of my other videos, because in this house we love using all parts of the animal, so to speak. I lay the base colors of natural gray and green, allowing them to be the foundation for the details I'll soon add. The idea behind this piece is for the metallic embellishments to act as uniquely shaped windows into the scene. The layout is formatted around the pieces themselves. I had to continuously tell myself to trust the process on this piece. I didn't have the clearest vision for the details, just the placement of the major elements. As the piece evolved and the cracks were filled and elements polished, however, I grew more comfortable with what became the final result. Layer by layer, I fill in what I believe would naturally occur in the space that I've created. The shadows of the grass, the stalks themselves, moss growing across the pathway, overgrowth stretching rudely in front of stones, small flowers on the meadow grass, until finally I'm happy with the setting. Assuring the proper alignment of all portraits with their embellishments was a bit tedious, and I needed it to be perfect. I approached the variants differently. For the centerpiece, I opted to first secure the painting and then glue the frame atop it. For the top and bottom gates, I glued them directly to the painting and cut around their silhouette after the fact. Needless to say, this was incredibly stressful, and more than anything, I wanted to assure I didn't cut into a presentable part of my painting. I weaved back and forth, culling the edges of the ridged side into proper shape, trimming and retrimming whatever excess remained. I attached the combined canvases and metallic decal pieces to the cover as a unit, and then I had my final effect. And here you have them, our 3 finished tomes, each with their own unique details and inspirations. Let me know which of the 3 was your favorite. I greatly enjoyed my time making them, and I hope you enjoyed coming along with me for their final stages. I expect to bring you along for more covers in the future, so do stay tuned. Feel free to ask questions or chat with me in the comments. I love to hear what you think of my books, and I love helping any prospective fellow bookbinders. And, as this Renaissance playlist makes me feel like I am a 9th century villain who has won the game, I invite you all to keep a weather eye on the horizon for more grimoire and crafting content in the near future.